Hello, Colts fans, and welcome to episode number 4 of the IndySportsOne mini podcast. In this episode, I had the privilege of doing a co-podcast with Sam Sinclair from Circle City Podcast, and I actually let him host, so you'll hear him introduce himself, and then I'll be introduced. So I just thought I'd make this quick little introduction so everything flows a little bit better. Make sure to follow us at IndySportsOne on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, and you can find Sam and his stuff at Circle City Pod on Twitter. And so now here is the co-podcast episode with Sam.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle City Sports Podcast. I am your host, Sam Sinclair, and today I'm lucky enough to be joined by Tyler Zhang of IndySportsOne. Tyler, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. We had a great day at practice today. I'm glad to be on the show.
Yep, Tyler and I met up at Colts camp today on Thursday, and today we're just going to go through the last couple days of practice while the Colts have an off day on Friday. So, Tyler, you were able to go to practice on Tuesday. How'd the team look and everything?
Yeah, so day 5 of training camp, like you said, took place on Tuesday. It was the first morning practice for the Colts. It's actually a bit cooler in the morning compared to the afternoon practices. It made me kind of wonder if the players preferred morning or afternoon practices. And I know you had some questions about that as well, and you actually got a response from a couple players.
Yeah, I talked to Rigoberto Sanchez and Evan Boehm and Jordan Wilkins all after practice, I want to say Wednesday, and they all said they'd prefer morning practices, which is kind of interesting to think. If you've ever been to Westfield, you'll notice that the sun comes right over the trees in the morning, while if you're practicing from 2 to 4, the sun's right over top of your head. So there's a lot more shading. The temperature, of course, is not as high when you're practicing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in a full pad. So a lot of players prefer the morning practice. And Evan Baby even directly told me, he said, I'd much rather just get the practice over with in the morning than doing it in the afternoon, waiting for it all day.
Yeah, I can't blame them there. And the only thing is that there's a little bit less of a fan arrival to the morning practices, but still some good attendance. But yeah, definitely a lot cooler in the morning. So on Tuesday, just when players were taking the field, there was no sign of Penny Hart or Paris Campbell. They actually both missed the entire week of practice with hamstring injuries. On Tuesday, Kamoko Toure did not practice as he was still working back from a minor shoulder injury. And then most importantly of all, Colts quarterback Andrew Luck was not seen to start practice. Soon after that, the Colts media announced that Luck would miss practice, not because of a maintenance day, actually due to his lingering calf injury, and that he would speak with the media after practice. So once I heard that he was meeting with the media after practice, the alarm bells kind of went off, and it was pretty obvious that there had been some sort of setback in his recovery from that calf injury. And it sounds like because of the calf injury, it is forcing some more weight onto his ankle now, and which he has experienced some pain there. And, as bad as it is, I'm kind of glad that Andrew talked to the staff about the pain in his ankle, about his injury, instead of shrugging it off, because we all know how that turned out with his shoulder injury. Obviously missed the whole season 2 years ago. And I know a lot of fans are freaking out because of this injury, about a month away from the season starting. And so, Sam, I was just wondering how you felt about Luck's injury. Are you concerned at all? What's your verdict on the injury?
Well, after he talked to the media on Tuesday, he talked about more of it's being of his ankle. His ankle is more injured than his calf, which that raised a little bit of an eyebrow for me. But the calf, like I told you this morning at camp, I said, if you're sitting for 3 months at a time, doing no physical activity on your calf while it's trying to heal up, and then even, with Luck doing just individual and 7-on-7 drills, the movement and the rigorous, strain that's put on that calf, even in the limited practice in the NFL, that's still going to flare up the calf and re-aggravate it, because the calf went from doing nothing for 3 months to, moving around, all that stuff, and being used to throw as a platform, as a base for Andrew Luck. And I just think that really, if you sit around for 3 months to do nothing and then all of a sudden have to do all this physical activity, it's going to re-aggravate and injure the calf again. But maybe it's probably something small with the ankle, whereas he probably, like you said, probably put too much weight on his ankle, and now the pain has gone down to his ankle. But I've been saying I'd much rather him miss July and August than September, October, November. I'd much rather him play maybe one preseason game, but I don't want him, out there all of training camp and all preseason because he doesn't need all that time to practice.
Yeah, I think you hit that one right on the head. And he also mentioned that he's doing some work inside the facility. So when the players are out on the field, he's doing his whatever practice he's doing inside. But like you said, I think if he's resting but still practicing almost, I think that will kind of help things heal. But at the same time, it will keep him in the conditioning phase, so he's ready to go. Hopefully by week one. So that's something to look out for. But that's all for the Andrew Luck situation. We're now going to do a quick recap of the one-on-ones from Tuesday's practice. Pascal began the session with a nice catch with Pierre Desir defending him. Ishmael, who's been making great plays throughout practice so far, had a nice inside move on Kenny Moore, who was all over him, actually got a flag, so that was a great catch by Ishmael. Shad Kelly had a nice pass, lofting it over the head of Rocky Sin into the hands of Marcus Johnson for a touchdown. George Odom had a nice bat down on Brissett's comeback pass to Doyle. Hogan, who's having a good week, especially during the one-on-ones, lost his defender, Chris Milton, to get wide open for the reception. And this one I'm sure a lot of fans are happy to hear about. Reese Fountain made a contested catch over Quincy Wilson. That was really the only highlights of the offense on Tuesday practices. When the Colts transitioned to 11 on 11s, some very sloppy play. Just timing was off. Didn't look like the players were really trying as hard as they could. And offensive coordinator Nick Sirianni showed his displeasure with the offense. After the team drills, screaming at them to study the playbook. He may have threw a bad word or two in there, but he was definitely frustrated with how they were playing. There was some positives from that session, though. Walker delivered a nice pass to Pascal in the end zone. And then when they were doing some red zone drills, Jonathan Williams had a nice run up the middle for the touchdown. And then on the following play, he made the reception after swinging outright for the touchdown. So he's a player that has really impressed me so far, not just in Tuesday's practice, but throughout all of the 7 practices. Final note from Tuesday is an update on the defensive line. Al-Qadim Muhammad was lined up in sheared spot at left end and was playing with the starters in Autry, Hunt, and Houston. And Adam Vinatieri went 9 for 9, finishing with a 58-yarder. So it's good to see that Vinny still got it in him. And that's really all the breakdown from Tuesday. And Sam, I know you're there Wednesday. Unfortunately, I was not able to make it out there, but I know you got a good recap for us.
Yeah, a couple of players that didn't practice, of course, Jamal, Shearer, Andrew Luck, Spencer Ware. Those are the guys that missed majority of practice. Kamoka Toure didn't practice with the shoulder. Paris Campbell missed a second straight practice with a hamstring. Jack Doyle and Ben Bonogo missed with obliques. Braden Smith missed with a groin. That was his first missed practice. And a couple of guys got rest days, and Clayton Geathers, T.Y. Hilton, Marcus Hunt, and Jordan Wilkins. And Jordan Wilkins and Clayton Geathers both confirmed to me that those were just rest days, so nothing to worry about there. A couple notes I had from practice. To start 11 on 11s, they did a lot of situational stuff, 3rd and 1, 3rd and inches, and also a lot of goal line stuff, the goal line stuff was very entertaining to watch because that was probably the most physical, most live portion of practice we've seen so far in training camp. Jonathan Williams was actually the lead back in both situations. Once he got the first down 2 out of 3 times he was given the ball. And then I know Phillip Walker threw a wide open touchdown to Zach Pascal on 3rd and 1. But once they got to the red zone work, got down to the 1-yard line, the defense really held their own. With the offense had majority second team offensive linemen in, but the defense still kept the offense out all but 2 plays. I know Jonathan Williams had a 1-yard rushing touchdown late in the reps, and then Jacoby Brissett threw a touchdown to Mo Cox. So the defense really held their own. I know they had about 3 or 4 run plays in that little situation. And the defense was able to keep them out, and they even held them back a couple yards. So that was pretty promising to see that our defense was stout in the red zone work. And then a couple other things I noticed in the late 11 on 11 scrimmages and reps was Rocky Sin was out there with the first team. He had a nice interception actually on Devin Funches. Kari Willis ended up taking even more first team snaps. I know George Odom took a lot early with Clayton Geathers, limited for most of practice, but Kari Willis is beginning a lot of first team reps, and we even saw that today. he was getting most of the first team reps at safety. And then one thing that really, really stood out to me, and this is probably my biggest headline from practice on Wednesday, was that Bobby Okereke was the starting Mike linebacker in the ones in the final 11 on 11s reps, and not Anthony Walker. Anthony Walker was actually a part of the second team. That was something very interesting to watch. And of course, today's practice, we ended up seeing Okereke play majority of the first team reps. But yeah, Wednesday was mostly just situational, third down and one, fourth and inches, and a lot of course, we kept seeing a lot of rookies getting their time with the offense, but we saw Matt Eberflus talk about how he's just mixing and matching right now on defense, but he's really going to hone in on who the starters are close to the regular season. So we can't put too much merit on who's out there now, but we could still see that, hey, a lot of these rookies are getting a lot of snaps now.
Yeah, I think really Bobby Okereke practicing with the first team yesterday. He also practiced with them for majority of today. And then Kari Willis, like you said yesterday, was also with the first team today. He was out there for a good time there. And then you had Nate Harrison starting with the first team. So, yes, they are working some different players with the first team. But Okereke and Kari Willis, 2 days in a row now, I think there's some real competition at middle linebacker with Anthony Walker and for Kari Willis with Odom and Gathers at that safety spot.
Yeah, I didn't think it was much competition at all because I thought that was Anthony Walker's job. But over the last 2 days, we've seen Okereke start in the 11-11, so maybe there is competition there. We'll have to see in preseason how Okereke plays. I mean, he's a hell of a coverage linebacker, but he's just not instinctive and as smart as Anthony Walker is, especially with Anthony Walker having experience at the linebacker at the Mike position.
Yeah, and it could just be, they could just be putting him in there just to see what he can do, but also
Yeah.
to kind of put some stress on Anthony Walker and try to have him perform a little bit better. They also have been running EJ Speed with the first team a little bit in that Sam linebacker spot, so he's going to be competing with Matt Adams in that aspect. Today, we also saw some mix-up on the line. Danico Autry didn't practice today at defensive tackle, so we actually saw Margus Hunt at Jamal Sheared's spot at left defensive end. We had Grover Stewart at nose tackle, and then Taekwon Lewis taking Hunt's spot. And then Houston didn't practice today, so Al-Qadim Muhammad got his spot on the outside at right defensive end. But once again, showing the versatility on the line. Without Nico Autry, definitely a lot of things you can do. You can put Lewis inside, outside. You can do the same with Hunt. And if Houston's ever out, you can put Muhammad on the ends as well.
That's something when I heard Jabal Shearer went down, I know he's a great edge setter, but I'm not too concerned about losing a body on the defensive line because it seems like all of our guys outside of Grover Stewart can rotate at any position on our defensive line, and we have a solid 8 and 9, position group. So while Shearer is probably our best edge setter, I'm not too worried. You could flip Justin Houston to that side, and like Kamoka Toure and Al-Qadim Muhammad and Ben Banogu, who we didn't see today, we could see all three of those guys be the primary pass rusher. So I'm not too concerned about Jabal Shearer missing time, but it really caught me off guard that they had Margus Hunt on the outside than Taekwon Lewis. And you even said in camp today that you'd much rather have Margus Hunt inside because he's a bigger body. And I agree with you. I think Taekwon Lewis should have been outside. So maybe they were just seeing what they could do there at that position.
Yeah, and I think that they kind of have to experiment because obviously that Jabal Sheard injury hurts. We have to keep in mind Justin Houston is pushing his 30s right now. He's been injured the past couple of seasons with the Chiefs, so we don't want to jinx anything. But if someone were to get hurt on that line, being able to have that versatility there really helps. And just to add some other things that happened today. For Thursday's practice, wide receivers were up and down like they kind of have been all camp. But like you kind of mentioned from Wednesday's practice, the defense in the red zone, I think they really continued their dominance there today in 11 on 11s and 7 on 7s.
Yeah, but the defense struggled at whole at the 2 minute drill late in practice. I know both offenses ended up scoring on a drive. The first team got all the way down to I want to say like the 4 or 5 yard line, and then the second team had had that really nice touchdown by Darius Fountain. That was probably the highlight of the day, to be honest. So that was a little bit concerning. It was a lot of check down passes and everything like that from Jacoby Brissett. But the defense, yeah, I'll agree with you on that. They did hold their own on in the red zone when they were working the first 11 on 11 scrimmages.
Yeah, so there was a lot of good things to see this week in camp. Obviously, tons of injuries, I guess. A lot of people being held out. It's kind of day to day. You don't really know who's going to be out there, who's not going to be out there. You kind of just have to wait and see. But this week, some morning practices, a little laid back compared to the practices last week. But overall, we got some great info. We saw a lot of good things. Offense was up and down at times. Defense was pretty good, but uh, still were able to make some really great observations. And before we end this episode, we actually got some questions on Twitter from a couple fans, and we're going to go ahead and answer those real quick. So the first question is, what are the odds of Chad Kelly being kept as the third QB with his awful personal history? And I'll let you go ahead and start this one off.
Well, it's a good sign that he's been the first or one of the first out at practice every day. We haven't seen him a whole lot with the second team, so that's a bit concerning. He's got the arm talent. He's got the accuracy. He just was a dumb 22-year-old quarterback at the time, and he had the spotlight on him. We've all been a dumb 22-year-old at the time. I would very much keep Chad Kelly as our third quarterback over Phillip Walker because Kelly's the more prototypical size quarterback. And with Brissett being on a 1-year deal, Chad Kelly could end up being our backup quarterback in 2020. So I would feel better with Chad Kelly than Phillip Walker as my backup in 2020. But it'll remain to be seen how he plays in camp or in preseason. I think if he outplays Phillip Walker in the preseason, we could definitely see him as the third quarterback on the practice squad.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. Phillip Walker has been a little shaky throughout training camp, but there's only one thing holding Chad Kelly back, and that would be, say, Luck hypothetically misses the first game of the season or is questionable, and we have to carry a third quarterback. Chad Kelly, like you said, dumb 22-year-old. It actually led to him being suspended the first two games of the season, so you'd have to carry Luck, who would probably not play hypothetically. Uh, Brissett, and then you need a backup, so it wouldn't be able to be Chad Kelly. So he might not make the roster, but I could definitely see him being a practice squad player. We also have a question about EJ Speed and what we think about him, and is he competing for a starting role?
Yeah, it seems like he's been running with the ones a lot this week, so it sounded like he's almost the number one guy for that Sam linebacker spot. So he's been flashing a lot in the run game, which surprised me. I've watched some of his tape. He's almost been a pure pass rusher, but he's been able to show off that athletic ability and that speed and that length that he has, and he's been able to make a lot of tackles in the backfield. So that's a positive sign. So it's gonna be interesting to see. We'll have to see him on an NFL field, just like a lot of these rookies. But so far, he looks like he's the lead horse in that Sam linebacker competition.
Yeah, and he kind of got overshadowed earlier when we were talking about the linebackers with Bobby Okereke, but I really like what I've seen from him so far. Like you said, he's made a name for himself for that Sam spot. I think a lot of people forget he's 6'4". He's super speedy. He led Division II, I think, in forced fumbles, so it's always great to have that. And yeah, I really like what I've seen. I know Darius Leonard said EJ Speed reminds him a little bit of himself last year, so that's a good sign because we all know how Darius Leonard turned out, Defensive Rookie of the Year. But yeah, great play from him. Really, the whole linebacker core has done a pretty decent job so far. And then lastly, we have one last question, and that is, how has Malik Hooker looked so far?
Well, we haven't seen him having to make a whole lot of plays, so that's a positive sign that he isn't relied on to make a lot of plays. I believe he's one of the very few Colts that's been out there every day, so that's also a good sign that he's actually fully healthy. Because I believe it takes you 2 full years to actually come back from an ACL injury, so that's always good. I know he almost had an interception or a pass breakup on T.Y. Hilton in practice today, but Malik he's looking great. He's running around. He's making not really making plays, but he's around the ball, of course. And of course, Malik's going to be that deep safety that's not going to be relied on to make a lot of plays. And I know he said, if I don't record anything on a stat sheet, it's because Darius Leonard and Marcus Hunt and Jamal Shearer, because they're stuffing the stat sheet in. It's because I'm not being relied on to make plays, and that's kind of what Malik is relied on to do. He's not asked to make he's asked to not make a lot of plays, but he's asked to defend the deep ball, and he did it really well last year, and he's so far in camp he's done it good this year.
Yeah, I would agree. He's looked good so far, and maybe a missed tackle here and there, but like you said, that's really not a concern because they barely even targeted him last season. I think it was around like 9, 12, whatever it was. They hardly targeted him last season, so missing a tackle in practice shouldn't bring up major concerns because, like you said, people are scared to throw it his way because he's a ball hawk. All right, so that wraps up the co-podcast with Sam Sinclair. Like I said, make sure to follow him at Circle City Pod on Twitter. And that wraps up this episode. We had a great week at training camp, and we'll be out there over the weekend with our media passes, and we'll be out there Monday and Tuesday as well in the stands. So we'll see you all soon, and go Colts.